Hey, good morning, good day, everybody. Wanted to just spend a little time doing a little bit of a recap on Module 3. Well, I shouldn't say most of, well, yes, most of you did post prior to today's deadline at midnight. So I have a general sense of where the class is, where you are as individuals. And I want to thank all of you for your candor and your discussion. I really enjoyed reading your replies to one another. Um, Module 3, again, talked about the impact of religion in our lives, our conscience, right, and our moral development. One of the things that struck me was I think Parth made mention that he viewed moral development more as a nurturing aspect in his life until he became a father. And then he saw the impact of nature. His daughter looks like him, may even act like him, and he can tell this. And as a father of two children and now grandfather, I can tell you nature does definitely play in our moral development. I believe so. I could see it in my two granddaughters. Slightly different in nature. One might be a little bit more prone to, take an extra cookie from the cookie jar as opposed to the other. You could kind of tell that. They might get that from their grandfather because I love cookies. So, religion, for many of you, played a role, some positive, some negative. So we understand um, that it is important, okay? It's an important driver in this issue of developing conscience and moral development overall. Um, so that would be a part of your nurturing, right? The way you are nurtured, how you're fed through religion, the way you're fed through academics and um, physical exercise will definitely impact your life. So, what I want to point out is that for people out there, I think Kamira kind of indicated this, that her religious inkling or initial foray into religion as a child or as a young adult led her to spirituality. And you hear this, and this is true. For many people, they may leave a religion and explore this concept of spirituality. Uh, in my life, I've experienced both, and I think there should be a tethering of the two, and there's a good reason for that. We can get into that offline, but I think the reason I believe there should be a tethering in simple English is religion has rules, spirituality has space. That's right. Think about that. It came to me this morning. One of the reasons when I was younger I didn't want to follow religion was because it had rules. Can't do this, you can't do that. Now I'm like, no, man, I'm 17. I'm doing what I want to do. Okay? So because religion had rules, I didn't want to follow it. But spirituality gives me space. Oh, with spirituality, I could go to India and meet a Sikh, for example, and go to a high mountain and experience spirituality that way. Or I could join a cult, a group, and enjoy spirituality. Maybe with the concept of back in the 60s free love, right? Which, as you know, love is not free. But if you buy into that, you find there's a bill at the end that you're going to have to pay. So keep that in mind for those of you that are on this spiritual quest without being tethered to a foundation, whether it's a major world religion or not. What are you doing out there in space? And for those of you that are only in religion and following the do's and don'ts, why? Why are you doing that? And how consistently are you doing it? And is it affecting your life? And if so, how? In a good or in a negative way? I've known people that are very religious, follow the rules for the most part, but then are miserable people. They take it out on others in different ways, or they keep things in a closet hidden, and they pretend and they do things almost like an alter ego, or having, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type complex. So challenge yourselves. For those of you that have been impacted by religion one way or the other, how is it affecting you being a positive individual in society? This affects our conscience. Now, remember, our conscience, as one of you wrote, I won't quote the person, but you can go back to the threads. One of you said that conscience, if I'm not mistaken, knowing right from wrong, is for a person to make themselves, meaning only we can judge what is right or wrong. And I don't want to quote the person because I may have gotten their intent wrong. But if I got it right, what they're basically saying is no one should tell you what's right or wrong for you. I don't know about you, but I find that problematic. Taken to its logical conclusion, as another one of you wrote, the 9/11 terrorists believed that they had the divine command from God to do this. Suicide bombers, divine command from God to bomb. Some of our school shooters might have even felt, okay? They felt it was right to do. Current assassination attempts on a former president. These people claim, hey, this is right. Is it really? Just because you have autonomy, mind, body, and spirit, does it mean you have the autonomous answer to what is right and wrong, and you are judge, jury, and executioner? I don't believe so. So I would challenge that person and others who may think that way to really dig deep and say, does the government, for example, or does religion, or family have a right or an obligation to articulate and help us determine what is right or wrong? Do we look at history? Try not to repeat the mistakes. And I think what I'm sensing from some of you is what typically happens in this course. You come in this course, believing you're objective and you've got this experience behind you and maybe hurts, and you're going to justify your position. No, you don't have to do that. Not even with me. This is not about us, like when I challenge you in a thread. It's not for you to come back to me. That's none of my business. What is my business is to get you to get in front of that mirror and look at yourself and say, Professor Savini is questioning me why I might have used a certain term, or why did I single out a certain group? There was one where this individual singled out a certain group in their thread, and I questioned the person, and I can just say this to you. From personal experience, it is easy to take a situation, a crime, something violent, or maybe something that's not as serious, something that happens to you in society that was wrong, okay, or to a loved one, and use that situation, which was definitely a wrong committed against you or that person, and then you develop feelings around that and beliefs and then possibly biases. I can speak from personal experience that almost happened to me. I won't get into too much detail, but if you want to learn more about it, contact me offline. But I can tell you, imagine being a woman imagine being in the city without a husband, and the very worst crime that could be committed against you was committed not by one individual, not by two, but by three. And you come home in tattered clothing, dirty, stolen, everything that you had stolen from you, even your dignity. And you come home to a young man, a 16-year-old boy, and he reacts. That's what happened to me. Now, I could have used that situation and been justified in saying X group of people are bad. Never walk through that neighborhood again because of a certain demographic or a certain language, whatever it may have been. Would I have been justified in doing that? I felt so at the time. But immediately, thankfully, I changed. And I changed as a result of, you can imagine, religion and spirituality. Understanding sometimes we suffer things not to develop biases, but to develop compassion and understanding and forgiveness. So for those of you that struggle like I did at one time because you were hurt, understand that you carry this hurt into public service. And we're getting into module 4, and we'll be talking about the social contract that the government has with its people. And what concerns me about a few of you is that in your posts I'm picking up what I believe are little signals of biases. We don't need any more bias in public service. And if you can't deal with your bias, public service, true public service, doesn't need you, and the people will only be hurt by you. And I can give you case in point where I've seen it. This year I get my 40-year meritorious award, or whatever award they give you for being an old-timer, right? I have seen people, whether at the Department of Housing and Urban Development or even in nonprofits that I've often affiliated myself with. Some people show favoritism. I know the Italian Americans did. I'll be the first one to tell you, I know up in New Jersey, Italian Americans would look to help one another, which is not a bad thing, but maybe to the detriment of someone else. That's wrong. That is wrong. The Irish did it. Matter of fact, there's kind of an inside understanding if you're in Jersey that the Turnpike Authority is kind of run by a certain demographic group, and from Ireland, shall we say, right? The Irish. Whether that's true or not, but that's a perception. You ask the rank and file there who are not Irish what they think. But is that emblematic of all Irish? No, it's not. So the favoritism in public service erodes public service, and it erodes the social contract that we're going to be exploring in Module 4 and the bases for our Constitution and this great country we have. So I can just imagine how people with biases, and I don't have to imagine, I know it. I have a sister-in-law who was having hard times with substance abuse, and for a period of time she needed public support. So she went and she applied for whatever welfare benefits were being provided, and this was in the city of Elizabeth, New Jersey. She kept getting refused, but yet she knew of people who were getting the same benefits she was looking for, and she was in the same situation they were. Unmarried, children at home, couldn't pay the rent, didn't have enough money for food. Well, she moved out of state she moved to Pennsylvania, and she received public support there. Now, different states, different rules, I get it. In her mind, though, she felt she was discriminated against because of what she looked like. She didn't fit the profile of somebody in Elizabeth, New Jersey, I guess. So, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But as public servants, we have to go above and beyond to show the public that we're going to treat them fairly and right. You're seeing a lot today from our politicians, from our government, and from corporations, corporate executives. They are showing favoritism. It certainly appears that way. The media seems to do that, depending on what cable news network you're watching. We should be the honest brokers in government. And whether you agree with a lifestyle, a demographic, or not. So that's why this class is so important, because without me challenging you to examine your conscience, your moral development, your values, your ethical framework, okay, we're in trouble in this country. So I appreciate your candor because you're allowing me to look in, all right? You'll be reading in the near future about defense mechanisms. Some of you have been using them, I can tell in the threads, but that's okay because we all want to defend our positions. I just ask that you keep an open mind, really. And if you are on a spiritual journey, keep an open spirit. Because at the end of the day, nobody has a monopoly on the truth. Nobody. Which means that when my wife and I have a decision to make, we make it together and we each compromise on many decisions. Some decisions, actually most, my wife's right. She's pretty quick, she gets it. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Some decisions, like when it comes to car repairs and things, I'm usually right because I can tell, when we're getting hosed on a price or a labor estimate in particular. But usually we come together. Why can't we as a people come together and compromise? There's so many difficult issues out there that society could deal with if people would just chill and say, you know what, I might believe in this way. You believe in a totally different way, but you know what, where can we find common ground? And let's see. We'll start with a compromise solution and see where it takes us. And if it's not working, let's experiment. Let's make some adjustments. Why does it have to be either the left's way, the right's way, that person's way? No. Compromise. You're not seeing it. Our leaders are failing. And that's why I think we, future public servants that you, and some of you are currently public servants, it's dependent on you not to succumb to that virus of being parochial, to really be inclusive. You're going to include the people you don't like. You're going to include the people that you think hurt you. And you're going to value their opinion. And you're going to look to help them. Remember the social contract. Individuals give up their rights to the government because we understand the government can't take care of all of us individually, although it tries. That's another identity politics discussion. But in general, the social compact is, hey, I give up my individual right, so you, Mr. Government, Miss Government, can do what's best for all of us in general. So sometimes I'll feel good about the law. The speed limit 55, I think it sucks. I think I should do 70, but I get it. 55 is safe, for families with kids in a car or those that don't know how to drive. I get it. Compromise. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? And you try to keep society going forward, in other words. So let me just say that I really want you not to argue with me, not to debate with me in these replies, to think and say, you know what? Do I have a bias? Is there a prejudice that I'm trying to justify because I'm a social justice warrior or because I'm a devout Christian or Catholic? What is it? Because what you might think is a virtue might actually be more akin to a vice. Okay? So think about these things. Get ready for this next week's discussion thread. I appreciate those of you that post early, but if you post early, make sure you continue to read each other's threads. I've had students who posted on the first day. I had one student in particular, a very young lady, I'll never forget. I had to call her and say, look, because she said, Professor, why am I getting low points on my discussion threads? I'm the first one to post. I said, yeah, and you never look at anyone else's and you don't ever reply, okay, or provide input. For those of you that post late, you're going to lose points unless I see you engaging on the front end. You might not have your thoughts together, but you might read, for example, a post from Jasmine or Monica. Just reply and say, hey, look, that's an idea I think I kind of have and I might use it in mine. Or, you know what? There is someone you might disagree with. And I want to point out, I think it's one of the discussion threads, and I believe it is Matt, does a very nice job, at least in this discussion thread, challenging one of you, and in a respectful manner, providing another view of things. That's what this class is supposed to do. Challenge one another, okay? Remember, this might hurt, but that's good because you're growing ethical muscle. See you next week, if not sooner, because you never know. A pop-up quiz might come, especially if some of you start losing more points on these discussion threads. I'm going to have to give out some pop quizzes, okay? But one will be coming soon. Have a really good rest of the week, okay? Talk to you next week.